So often people ask me how to improve if I'm a 1500 rated player, or how to get to 2000 rating, and today I have prepared something special for you, and I truly believe it's going to be beneficial for your chess improvement. So I'm going to show you the tournament games that I have played in a Rabbit Chess, and I'm going to explain you all of the key ideas of the Sicilian defense that happened in this game, because I believe that this opening, if you master it, you're going to become a much higher rated player. So I have played it as black. The game started with e4, c5, knight f3 is the main move here, intending to play d4 next move. I've played e6. I mean, there are different moves for black, of course, d6 and knight c6 are possible, but I like this move e6. It's a very solid, but at the same time, a very active move, which gives a lot of opportunities for black. So d4, takes, and a6. That is known as a Kan variation, and the point is, this knight is not getting to b5, from where it could target this d6 square, and also potentially black might play b5, especially if white plays knight to c3, which is one of the main moves, and that is what happened in our game. I have played against a very strong player here, and I wanted to play for a win. I wanted to be aggressive, so I played the move b5, and this move has multiple purposes. It might go to b4 at some point and attack this knight, and it also opens the diagonal for this bishop, and of course on b7 the bishop will be a monster. But well, at the same time, white is having a lot of pieces developed already, and so far I have only played with my pawns, which is generally not such a great thing, so I have to be fast with my development. Queen to b6, it's still a theoretical line here, attacking the knight, and the point is, if you want to bring your bishop here, which might seem like a logical next step, now you have all of your minor pieces developed, and also you have prepared some discover attacks against this queen, but there is bishop to c5, which deals with all of the problems, and then the knight is once again under attack. If you go away with the knight, I'm going to take on e3, so yes, people are normally playing knight to b3, intending to play bishop b3 now with the tempo, as c5 square is covered, so the bishop can go there. That is why the queen goes back to c7, so the point was to push this knight back to b3, away from the center before developing the queen. Queen to f3, white wants to play bishop f4 with the tempo. That might be dangerous, but also at the same time maybe e5 ideas might be possible, and then this e5 pawn is very strong one, and the knight comes to e4 and goes to d6, where it's just a monster. So I decided to stop this idea and played bishop to b7. Now bishop f4 has been played, d6, of course, I don't want to waste any more time and move the queen, so I played d6, preparing the move knight to d7, the pawn is protected here, and well, I need to develop my pieces as fast as possible now, because otherwise I'm just gonna get crushed. You could see that white has developed pretty much everything apart from the rooks, so yeah, I really have to catch up. Long castles, it seems like white is trying to go all in here with the attack, using the fact that black's king is still in the center, the development is still far from being over, so it's a very double-edged position, but a very interesting one, so that is why I believe it's going to be very, very instructive for you to see the whole plans here. So I'm playing knight to d7, continuing my development, and this move has multiple purposes. First of all, of course, the knight can go forward here to help with the d6 pawn problem, because if my opponent is going to attack it multiple times and I don't have anything against it, I'm just going to be crushed. And also this rook is now free to go, and of course c8 square is perfect for this rook. g4 has been played. This is a very interesting move. The point is, if I develop my knight to f6 now, then g5 comes and this knight has no moves to go, so I can do that. And of course I want to develop my knight. I don't want to go to e7, because that would compromise this d6 pawn, so some sacrifices would be possible here with bishop takes b5, then takes, knight takes, and then knight takes d6, knight takes f7. I mean, that's just a disaster for black. I can't do that either. That is why I played here knight to e5, attacking the queen here. The knight is good in the center, and if black captures, I don't care about these double pawns. In fact, this e5 pawn is a very good one, controlling a lot of squares, and most importantly, there is no dark squares bishop for white here, and so there are so many weak dark squares which I can use, and yeah, of course, that is a dream scenario for me. Of course, white wouldn't do that, just queen e2, and white's idea is to remove the bishop and then play f4 and just push my knight away, or make sure that I'm going to exchange it. knight f6. Now I'm playing it because, well, I was a little bit worried about g5, and then, like I said, knight e7, I still don't want to do it because of some sacrifices, and knight f6 wouldn't be possible, so I did it immediately here. Although there was even a better move for me, namely b4, immediately trying to attack this knight. I couldn't really understand the point of it, but the problem for white is the knight doesn't really have a lot of good squares. For example, if you go to a4, you should always be careful with those attacks here, bishop c6. The knight is hanging, the knight doesn't really have any moves, so it's very, very tricky here. And yeah, white should start some tactics, bishop takes, knight c5, but still black is better here. I played knight f6, just trying to develop my pieces further on, and then knight to d7. I'm supporting the knight, I was pretty satisfied with it. Now it seems like a very solid structure here. Bishop went to g3, and of course white is trying to continue this threat. I played bishop to e7, and by the way, once again, b4 was a very, very strong move here. And yeah, unfortunately, I didn't really understand this idea. I thought that the knight will go somewhere away, and I wasn't sure that it's better for me, but objectively it is. So remember that b4 is always a very natural idea in the Sicilian defense for black. So I played bishop to e7, I'm attacking this pawn on g5, and f4, basically an automatic move for white, because, well, he played bishop g3, and f4 is a very logical next step. I took the bishop, of course I don't want to go back, and also I felt pretty good with a pair of bishops. Now this bishop is very strong and it doesn't have any opponent in terms of white slide squares bishop, and this one is a very solid one here, controlling all of the stuff, defending the d6 pawn, making sure that f5 is not possible because the pawn is hanging there. So I castle. And now h4. h4 seems like a very interesting move because it's preparing the move f5, and then the g5 pawn would be protected. And here there was a completely winning move for black, which I once again didn't make because, like I said, I completely missed this idea. Maybe in a classical chess I would have found it, but in a rapid I was just focusing on finishing my development, which is normally a very good idea, and I mean, that's a good move, but the problem is p4 is completely winning the game now. Because the knight is under attack, you have to go somewhere. If you go to a4, then the knight is probably going to be lost. I thought that knight a2 is a logical move, but then a5, and it's so inconvenient for white to deal with all of the threats. This bishop might come to a6, but a4 and b3 is a huge threat, and then the knight comes to c5, also with multiple threats, so that would have been just a dream for me. Fortunately, I didn't do that. Rook to d8 has been played instead, and finally white played a3 to stop this b4 idea. And now it's not that simple, because to reinforce this threat I have to play a5, but then the b5 pawn is hanging, so it's not really realistic. I have finally finished my development, I was still happy with it, and objectively the position is still better for black, it's just that b4 was completely crushing. And well, now if I have this position again, of course, I would know this resource and I would pay attention to it. So h5 has been played, and now queen to c4. That was a mistake. Basically, the only mistake I did in this game. I was okay with exchanging the queens, because then, well, I'm active here, maybe not with a rook, because well, I completely miss the fact that there is knight to a5. It's okay, I'm still not losing, I have rook c7, but I really didn't want to lose this bishop to let it be exchanged. So maybe I would have taken with a pawn, but then, yeah, the position is around equal and there is nothing special. But I thought that white has a very dangerous attack here, so if I exchange the queens, of course, no checkmate is possible, and that is why I wanted to play queen to c4, but white is just playing queen to e3, and like I said, knight a5 is a huge threat here, at least positionally, because I don't want to allow this exchange. And so I needed to go back with the bishop, and I'm losing a lot of time. The queen is also kind of clumsy on c4. It can be attacked here. Rook d4 has been played. So yeah, queen c4 was a completely bad idea, but well, it's okay to make mistakes, you learn out of it. And now I played back queen to c6, trying to put some pressure on the e4 pawn and on the diagonal as well. Rook h to d1 has been played, trying to create some pressure here along the d file, but the pawn is well protected still. And if my opponent ever plays f5, I always have this resource knight to e5, and the knight would be cementing the whole position for me. But of course, still there are some ideas here to attack my king. Knight to b6, I played the move here to maybe play knight to c4 and attack the queen, the pawns here, or maybe even knight to a4, attacking this knight. You can't take because of the checkmate. And so that is why my opponent played here knight to a5, first of all, to stop the knight c4 idea and attack the queen. So it's a move with the tempo. Queen went back to c7, and now I'm still creating those threats with knight a4 because the second knight on a5 would also be hanging. That is why my opponent played rook to d2 to defend this pawn on c2, so knight a4 doesn't really come with such a huge threat. But now try to pause the video for a second and find the best move for black, because it's a really crucial moment in the game. I hope you have found it. The right move is d5. And yeah, it's opening up all of the bishops here, trying to fight for all of the diagonals. Of course, if you are having a pair of bishops, you should try to open up the position. The only issue with it is a very tactical resource, f5. And of course, you need to have an answer for that. And I had an idea in mind. Please feel free to pause the video again and find it, because that is a really key moments here in the game. So the queen is under attack here, and I played the move e5, blocking the diagonal and attacking this rook, and this pawn is about to capture all of white major pieces here, something truly amazing. I have never done it in my life before, but there is no way for white to deal with this threat. I mean, you can't step away with your queen because of g5 pawn, and then you're losing the pawn and the exchange, and this rook is still hanging. I mean, that would be a horrible position. You can't take on d5. I mean, you could say, I'm gonna just sacrifice an exchange, no big deal, but the problem is there is a knight on a5 there, which is gonna be lost too, so you're losing a great number of material, and otherwise there's just no move here for white. White decided to try the move f6, the most active move probably, but still I'm taking the rook here, attacking the queen, sacrificing my queen on c7, pawn takes, now pawn takes on e3, bishop takes c7, and pawn takes on d2. So like I said, this pawn is taking all of white pieces here and just winning the whole game. King takes, and the last trick here, feel free to pause the video and find the best move for black. You can of course play rook to e8, and that would be still winning because it's so important to eliminate this very strong pawn on e7. But even stronger would be to play rook to d7, because now after bishop takes, I firstly played d takes e with a check here, and then I captured my pawn on e7. Because if you play rook to e8 instead, at least after rook takes, white can capture this pawn on d5. So rook d7, bishop takes, pawn takes, king to e3, and rook takes e7. My opponent played bishop d4, hoping for some chances here, because, you know, in a rapid chess, when you don't have a lot of time, you can still try to trick your opponent. If you're blocking everything, if the rooks don't have any open files, it's difficult to break through. So that is why I played here the move f5. Also a very instructive moment, because, like I said, if the rooks are not doing much, not having any penetration squares, any open files, it's very difficult to use the material advantage. So that is why I'm playing f5. I'm sacrificing the pawn here. I don't care about the pawns. I care about the open files there. I have the g file potentially if I need it, and of course I have the f file, which I'm using immediately here. Bishop d4, rook f3 check, king goes away, rook h5, and of course I win the pawn back, and then I create my passer. And what even more importantly, I always have this opportunity to play e3 and open up this bishop. Knight went to b3, I just took the pawn, by the way, not allowing this knight to come to c5, where it would be active. So always remember, you need to stop your opponent's counterplay. Then it's gonna be much more difficult for him to fight against you. Knight to d2, attacking the e4 pawn, and I said, you know what, if you want, you can take it. I'm gonna just give you a few checks and play e3, grab it, but then my bishop is gonna be opened, and also this file is opened, which is great for my rooks. So rook e8 now pinning this bishop, and white has to go back with one of the knights passively to defend it. So knight d1 has been played, and now just h5, pushing it forward, c4, trying to create some counterplay. Once again, that's the only chance to ever save your game or win your game. You always need to have some counterplay. So my opponent is doing that, but rook to h1 now threatening rook takes d1, and then rook takes e3. Knight f2, and I'm going to the other side, just picking up this pawn. Knight g4 has been played, pretty tricky move, threatening knight f6, and I don't really have a good square with this king to go, because going to this diagonal seems to be very scary if the king goes away. King to f7 still allows some checks, so I decided just to take on e3, eliminate this strong bishop, and then it should be simpler for me because, well, I still have those two passers here. King to d4 and just h3. c5, well, my opponent is still trying to push. Rook a4 check. Now the king can't go away because of this knight to g4, so knight c4 has been played, and now bishop f3, just attacking this knight. It can't go anywhere forward because of h2 and h1. Knight h2 is absolutely forced. I mean, you have knight f2, but then still h2. And now bishop e2, just attacking this knight. There is no way to save it because it's pinned, and then white resigned here. So on the example of this game, you could see how powerful the Sicilian defense is, but at the same time how complex it is. To make it simple for you to master this opening, I have made an introduction to this opening in this video, and well, I truly believe that it's gonna help you boost your chess level, so definitely take a look.